Okay, so for this project, I wanted to kind of do a quick little intro on how to do some vellum cloth simulations. So the first thing I have here is just a regular old grid here. And it's nothing too fancy. I just made it 20 by 10, gave it 10 rows by 10 columns. I am transforming it just so it's facing this way now. Probably doesn't really matter. Then I'm remeshing it, so I'm getting quite a bit of detail in here. Just for the sake of showing that you can do this, I'm auto UVing it. And then if you want to see, it's UV'd, pretty easy. So that way if I ever wanted to make this like a legitimate flag and put some sort of symbol on it or something, that'd be cool. And then the next thing is you can just type in Vellum Cloth. And this is the configure node here. So it just requires some geometry to turn into a vellum cloth. And then it requires a solver. So you just got to type in vellum solver. There we go. And then just hook up the 3. And that's how we get that. So if we have our little flag coming here, we don't have to visualize these anymore. We already saw that it worked. This Vellum Cloth Configure node has some things going on in here. So we're telling it to be a cloth. The geometry we're plugging in, they are primitives. This is all of its calculations here. This is all fine. This is where we start to be able to tweak some of these things. So I typed in, or I have these values for like the drag and the tangent drag. And then this pin to animation part. So I have some values here already. These are just some points. If you want to see kind of what they're doing, whoops, let's see. Let's make sure we get the solver visible here. And I am on frame 48 here just because, again, I wanted to be in the middle of my simulation here. So we'll just have to wait till it jumps to frame 48 here. But what these points are doing, there you go, now you can see these points are all these points here. So I've just grabbed kind of top and bottom corners here, and if I hit play, you can see I'm getting some nice, interesting cloth deformation in here. And then the points that I told it to pin to are staying put, so it's kind of like, you know, it's maybe attached to like a pole or something here. Really quick, let's actually stop that, and we'll back it up. And let's actually add just a few more points here. So maybe I want to do the middle part too. So let's just grab some parts in the middle, hit enter to add those. Now it's just going to have to recalculate that. So we'll wait for it to do its little time jump to frame 48. It's on 37, 39. Now it's in the 40s, so it shouldn't take too much longer here. Now you can see that middle part's being held to it as well. Which, again, if you imagine there's like a flagpole here or something, this is pretty decent. So we'll let that play out here. Because then the last thing that I want to do is just attach a little make loop. And that will have a perfectly looping simulation for us to use. Okay, so now we have that all simulated down at the bottom here. You can see it's looking pretty decent for a quick little demonstration here. Let's go ahead and plug in that make loop. And it's just doing the current frame range here. So let's go ahead and visualize that. And it's going to calculate through that, but it should be looping. Sometimes the loop has a little bit of a hard time actually looping. But there you go. It appears to actually be looping. Okay, so that's how you kind of set up the vellum cloth. You can pin some points, that way those are all not moving. If you forget to pin any points, the thing actually just kind of falls. So you got to make sure that it's being pinned so that you get, if you want to make a flag at least, then you'll get some of the flag deforms going on in there. In this vellum solver, that's actually where you are handling like the forces, the time scale, and all that. So I've just kept it time scale of 1. You can try and tell it what to do if any pieces are like really colliding with each other. So here, if it does something really weird, I could mess with some of these. And I had to do that on a further example of these vellum cloths, but for this was okay. But here under forces, this is where you can, change your gravity. You can have your wind direction, the wind drag, all that stuff. So I've already kind of messed with some values there and got this, and that's kind of what I like. So the next thing I'll show you is how to actually output this in such a way that we can use it in Unreal. Okay, so I went through and I actually kind of simplified the geometry here, so it's a lot less, and then I re-looped it. So if you look, because there's less geometry in here, it's not doing quite as cool of a cloth simulation as it was before, but still pretty neat, right? And it's looping, and it looks pretty good. So in order to save this out in something that can be used in Unreal, what I ended up doing was I go up here to File, and you can say Export as an Alembic. Okay, and you can go ahead and just tell it, hey, save to the desktop or whatever. We'll call this like example flag .abc for Alembic. Accept. Yeah, we only have, the current take. That's fine. We want to do export from frame range, so I have from frame 48 to 240. That seems fine. And then it's asking us what we want to actually export. And this is just on the object level here. So I only have one thing on my object level. It's called File 1 because I had a file before, but then I just plugged in a grid that you can see. So I used to have a file, but I just plugged in a grid to make it simpler for this demonstration. So it's just called File 1. So I can tell it, okay, let's do File 1 and accept, and then we can say export. And it'll come up with a thing, and it's saying, all right, we're doing all the frames. And there we go. It gave me an Alembic that we can use in Unreal. Okay, so now I'm in Unreal, and I'm just in a little folder here that I've called example for this little demonstration. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag in my example flag. And it's just saying, my make loop was the last node that I put in, so it's just called make loop. It tells me what frames I had and the number of frames. I think by default it wants to do a static mesh, but obviously that doesn't make any sense, right? So I think we want to do geometry cache, and I think we want to do from frame 48 here to 240. And I believe that's all fine, so let's go ahead and hit import. And it's going to take some time to get that done, so I'll see you when it's over with. Okay, so that finished importing. Didn't take too long. I'll go ahead and drag it out into my scene here. It's pretty small just because of the Houdini units, but we'll scale it up, get it rotated properly here. And then if I just kind of simulate this, you can see that it is in fact blowing in the wind. So yep, using an Alembic and telling it how many frames and everything was, in my opinion, the most effective way to get those things in here. And it is UV mapped if I wanted to put a little material on there. So now let's do something a little bit more complex with this, huh? Okay, so to do something a little bit more complex, I wanted to do like a ship's sails, but I wanted them to unfurl and then fill with wind. So I'm going to do the unfurl part first, and then I'll do the fill with wind part after that. So first off, I'm starting with a grid because I'm going to make this entirely in Houdini. So I have this grid, and I've kept its amount of columns to 2, but I changed its rows to 30. That way I just get all these lines going across like this. Then I'm hooking up a mountain node here, and I just kind of mess with the height and element size until I got something kind of like this. Okay, then I'm just transforming it so it's rotated, and then I've also scaled it so it's a little bit squished together, like it's, you know, the sails are rolled up a little bit, kind of folded up. You can imagine this is like at the top of the mast, and these are, you know, it probably should be rolled up a little bit more, folded up a little bit more, but this is okay for my demonstration for now. I'll fix it when I do the more finalized one here. And then I'm remeshing it because, of course, I'm going to need quite a bit of detail on the insides here for my vellum. Okay, so then I'm grabbing my vellum cloth and my vellum solver, and I'm hooking them up. And in my cloth, all I've done is just taken, you know, some random points on the corner and the middle and the other corner, and that's fine. And then on my solver, I've just changed, I just gave it a little bit of wind so that when it falls, you know, maybe we could try a little bit different value here. That when it falls, it's kind of falling down at an angle like the wind is already taking it a little bit. So let's just go ahead and see what that looks like here. So it starts to fall. The sails are unfurling, kind of filling with wind already. It might be a little bit too much wind, but you kind of get the idea. Maybe we'll just drop it down to, like, let's do 3.5, because I think a little bit more than what I had when I was first testing it out will be good. Yeah, that's cool. So if we turn it to like smooth shaded, boom, we can lock it to real time here. Let's start that over. And there you go. So there's the sails falling. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to kind of keep messing with this till I get a little bit better results, but this was kind of the basic idea of getting the rolled up sails to kind of fall and fill with wind. But I'm going to actually export this part of it as an alembic, and then I'm going to do the next part so I can kind of have it looping, if that makes any sense. So if you don't remember how to export these, you just go File, Export as an alembic, and we can just call it like example sails, I guess. Oops. Sail. The frame range, we actually, I guess, want this one to be like 1 to maybe like right there, like 35-ish. I don't know, I'll probably tweak it again a little bit, and then we just got to go in and tell it to actually use grid number 1 and export it, and then we can import that into Unreal. Okay, so I kind of played around with the shape a little bit and the mountain and all the lines and stuff, and then I actually took, once it was fallen, once it had kind of unfurled, right before it filled with wind, I took that shape and I actually exported it out as an OBJ, and then I've actually brought it back into a new scene here as a file. So I just have sail dropped.obj. I have this group where I'm just selecting some points up here and at the bottom, because now it's like it's unfolded and it's going to fill with wind, right? And then I go into that vellum and I tell it to pin the points in group 1. So after assigning those points in group 1, I say, hey, use group 1 to pin those points. And then in that solver, I've just adjusted. Now I'm filling it by 12. And actually, I've keyframed the amount of wind I have here. So as you can see, it goes and it kind of fills with a big gust, and then it starts to go back down so that hopefully it kind of doesn't fill very much, and then starts to fill a bit more. So it kind of, you can see it's kind of growing and shrinking there, right? Filling with wind, and then kind of the air kind of leaves it, so the shape is changing. So let's go ahead and just hit play on this. Let me go to my smooth shaded. There we go. So there it fills with wind. And it's already kind of figured out the first little bit of this, and then we'll just let it play through the rest of it here. Okay, so now it's played through that. So you can take a look at this. You can see it's kind of filling, and then the air comes out of it, fills up again, and the air comes out, fills up again. Okay, so it's not looping, but again, I can always add that make loop and get a little looped part of this somewhere in here and kind of blend those together. But the reason why this part of it is actually going to match my the unfurling of the sail from before is because I actually took that point from like frame 35 or whatever after I kind of tweaked the shape and got something that I liked a little bit more. I took from that point at 35 and exported what the cloth looked like at that point as an OBJ and then brought this in. So this is an exact match of when the previous file ends its simulation. So these two should blend together perfectly. If I want to make this thing loop a little bit, I'll have to probably tweak it. But that's kind of the idea there is you can keyframe the forces to kind of get the sails to kind of pulsate a little bit like they're filling and the air is leaving, filling with wind, and then the air is leaving. So kind of cool. And then, yeah, once again, just one more time, if you want to export that, export it as an alembic, type in what you want it to be. So maybe this is like full sail now or something. Tell it to do the current take, the frame range, 1 through, I guess 240 is fine. And it should be GO1. And you would export that and then import it to Unreal. Okay, so I went ahead and did the sail fall and the sail fill, and I do have a loop. And then I have one that's not looped, so I can really mess around here. But for now, I think I'm just going to do the sail fall and the sail fill, and we'll get some cool renders out with this. This is just a basic ship that I have. It gets the job done. And then this is a water shader that I also have. So I just decided to kind of build a little scene here to really try to sell this. So really, I just have these sails in here, and what's happening is I have some sails that are let's see, so I have the sail falling, and you can see they're all in here. I have them named so that they're kind of in order here. Okay, and then I have the sail loop and the sail not looped. So I think for right now I'm just going to do the not looped. And I'll go look at the level blueprints here. So this is kind of messy, but I just set this up. So basically what's going to happen, just to kind of show how this works in Unreal, I have all of the sails falling here. So here's front mast falling, middle mast falling, and back mast falling. And once they fall, it's going to wait for them to do their whole thing. And then it's actually going to turn their visibility off and then turn the visibility of the other ones on behind them and play their little animation from the start. So when that happens, you get something that looks kind of like this. So they'll wait a little bit, then they all fall, and then they all fill up. And then you can see up here, I did another little flag. I kind of just changed its shape a little bit, put a color on there. Looks pretty cool. But again, let's just maybe make this full screen. Kind of show this off. Okay, so let's take a look at that one more time here. Just simulate it. And then I'll try and be a little bit closer to the sails here so you can see them filling with wind and then kind of shrinking and growing. And there you go. So kind of a cool little project there.